Well, good morning. This is Steve, and we're going to do episode or installment 5 of my series called My Hangar. My Hangar is a collection of XPlane aircraft that I like to fly. We've gone through 4 of them now. The last one was the DA-62. And what you're looking at today is the Pilatus PC12. I have not flown this a lot, but I've been learning a bit more about it lately. There are some bugs in it, and that's been discussed online, particularly this version, which is the XPlane10 version. There is an XPlane11 version, which is basically the same airplane. Everything, the controls and everything are all the same. It probably just has nicer reflections and things like that. But in any case, I purchased this version because my daughter flew it, actually piloted it. Though she is not a pilot, she used to work for a company that owns 2 of these, and they were on a corporate flight one day, and the lady pilot asked her if she'd be interested in sitting in the co-pilot seat and taking the controls. So she said yes. Can't blame her, I would too. And so based on that, I decided to go ahead and buy the airplane. I didn't buy the one that's made in Switzerland by Pilatus. That costs about $4 million plus. Instead, I bought the Carenado version, which is what you see here. And it's a very nice airplane, very beautifully modeled. And I think the reflections are just fine. So let's hop inside, take a look. Take a look in there. We can close the doors with this little Carenado panel here. Like so. I'll make that go away. We'll leave the generator out here because we're going to use that to start up with. Go inside and we'll take a look around. It's got some beautiful hardwood panel doors and probably cherry or something that looks very red. You come inside here, you can flip open the little handy tabletops so you can write notes while you fly, which is very handy, especially for business travelers. So we come up here, let's go up above and we'll turn on the batteries and the avionics. And we're going to use external power, so I'll turn that switch on. The passenger wing no smoking signs, of course, and the seatbelt signs. And we'll put on a couple of lights outside, the beacon, wing, and navigation light. Leave the strobe off for the time being. And that's about all we need to do there. We'll take a look down below on the the center panel rather, center console. We've got some interior light switches. We can turn those on. Here you've got a throttle lever and a condition lever. I've got those mapped on my yoke here. And one thing we want to do, this is a high altitude plane with a pressurized cockpit. We're probably not going to need it today, but you always want to turn on the oxygen lever just in case. And so I've raised that up. Now, there have been some reports of bugs, and I've certainly run into a very buggy issue regarding this condition lever. And I'll do this with my own lever. If you move this up, like I'm moving the lever right now and you can see it move. The basic issue is that you start the airplane with the lever in completely off position, out, you're cutting off the fuel is what you're doing. Until you get the engine running at the ND on the engine panel, which is up here, this indicator right there. You want that to be 13% plus. And then what I have learned and what I've seen online verifies what I've learned is that you want to advance this lever very slowly, just until you see the props kick in and start to rotate fast. So you can't even see the props. Then you can slowly increase this lever up to the ground idle position. And once you're flying, you can advance it up to the flight idle position, and that's where it stays. Then to shut the aircraft down, you bring it back down to the off position. I've done that and it's worked. I know my friend Brad will say otherwise. He says you just advance it to ground idle. I tried doing that, and I keep getting fires in the engine, which basically means you're out of business. You have to start XPlane all over again and crank it up, which I've been doing for the last 2 days. So I'm going to give it another try, and we'll see how it works. I have a route set up using our GNS 530 nav system, which is, I think, probably the worst one in XPlane. It's very limited in scale and scope, what it'll do. It won't do airways, for example. But it will do an ILS runway or an ILS approach. And so we're going to do that today. We're going from here in Watsonville, California, where we landed last week, over to KMCE, which is Merced. And I've got the flight set up for that, and I've got the frequency plugged into the VLOC nav radio. We need to switch this over to GPS so that the nav system can follow our route properly. So we'll put that back away, go up here, and now comes the big moment. Let's see if we can start this thing up. So we press this button twice, or for 2 seconds I should say. Come back down here and we'll see the engine start to ramp up and the props start to turn. And I let this NG get up to about 20. And then I slowly start advancing. There we go. Just slowly start advancing the condition lever. And we can turn that out. And now we could advance it up to ground idle. And let's see, maybe we can do that. Let's try that. Now you can hear it. It's starting to increase the rotation speed of the prop. And I'm going to leave that down here at the low position for the time being, because I find it makes it easier to taxi when it's not rotating quite so fast. So that's all set. Let's go up here and turn on our taxi light and our strobe light, and we'll turn the generator on, and external power can go off. We'll turn on generator 2, and we're ready to roll. Brad turns on the inverter generator. I suppose we could do that, and the standby bus. We'll leave this on auto. So that's done. Every time you do anything, you get these warning lights, so you can just click them off. And let's do our taxi roll. We're going to go over here to runway 20, which is to the right, not very far, so I'll just keep the video going and try to avoid running into anybody. Yeah, I just ramped back the throttle a bit because we were going too fast there. We've been given clearance by ATC to go ahead and taxi out to runway 20. There's no traffic going on, so we'll just go right through everything. It's a very high-powered aircraft, so you have to be very cautious in how you apply throttle, and it can get away from you very quick, particularly on landing when you switch it over to reverse prop. It will slow the airplane down very fast. All right, we'll just come around here. Stop here for a second. Oops. Let's put the park brake on again and see if it'll work. Yep. All right. Come up here. We'll go ahead and put on the landing lights. And everything else is okay there. What I did forget to do was to go ahead and lower the flaps down to 15. There they go. Okay. So having done that, now we are ready to go. What I'm going to do is taxi out to the hold point on the runway. Then I will advance the condition lever up to, actually I can do that now. We can advance that up to ground idle. Let's see how that taxi works. Maybe it's okay to run it at ground idle. Let's just see. We'll take the park brake off. Yeah, that's okay. Okay, so you can taxi on ground idle setting. You don't need to leave the lever back the way I just did. That works okay. You just want to keep the throttle all the way back. And you may have to tap the brakes now and then if it gets out of your control. So we'll come up here to the hold point. And stop it right there. Okay, park brakes on. Lights are on, flaps are down. I'm going to go ahead and advance the condition up to flight idle. You hear that change in tone. That changes the condition lever, causing the props to rotate faster and changing the pitch angle of the blades to bite more air. And also there's a couple of other little features that the condition lever does, which I'm not that familiar with. So it's kind of a multi-function device. So now that that's done, we've got the brakes on. We'll let the brakes go and then slowly advance the throttle until we get up to a rotate speed of about 70 knots, and then we'll slowly take off. So here we go. Smooth takeoff. Bring up the gear. And we can bring up the flaps. And now we'll open up our panel. We can bring that down here. This is our control panel. We could have done this earlier and turn on the flight director, some of these other switches, yaw director, yaw damper, and we'll put it on nav mode and hit the AP, and that will bring us around to our route. Now we've got 6,000 feet established as our cruising altitude. I'll click to arm that speed bug or that altitude bug over here, and then set the VS thing and the VS thing, whatever. Set it to VS, and it will allow us to climb. Now the indication of climb is going to be this dial right down here, and right now we're climbing pretty well because of our throttle speed. As you can see, our altitude is climbing. We're climbing at a rate of, looks like 2,500, so we probably don't need to climb quite that fast. And so we can hit the down key on this and bring that down to maybe something like 1,800 or so. So here we come around to our route. That tone you heard was passing 5,000 feet on our way to 6. And we have now arrived at 6, and so our airspeed should pick up. As we approach the rum line, that's a sailing term, our magenta line going over to KMCE Merced. So it looks like we're all set there. Keep our speed to a nice comfortable 200 knots or so. This airplane will cruise at 250 or maybe 240. You see this red indicator on the speed dial. 200 is probably the optimal cruising speed. Saves some fuel. There we are. Looking down at the lovely hills of California, south of San Francisco. This is the orthophoto scenery that I downloaded. Quite a long process to get this stuff, but the results are spectacular. I mean, it really looks like California to me. All right. $53. Wonder about that. Oh, that wasn't 53, it was 59. Yeah. All right, so we'll leave it at 6,000. Okay. So that's about all we need to do for the time being. It'll be maybe a half-hour flight over to Merced, so I'll pause this video for you and make a little cut, and I'll let you join us again when we're approaching the next waypoint, which is actually going to be different. Right now we're heading straight toward MCE. If we go into the process window and we activate the approach, then we will be heading toward Showa, which is a waypoint a bit south of the airport, and it's the initial approach fix on our way into runway 30 at Merced. So I'll see you soon. Bring this guy down here. Now we'll see what happens with this display, whether it flips over automatically to the, yeah, see it jumps over to LNAV. And VLOC, there we go. So we didn't even have to make that change to the CDI because we are now on our approach into an ILS runway. And you'll see that it gives us an ILS indicator right there on that screen, the PFD screen, and the indicator now goes up which is appropriate because we're a little bit out of range. You can see the locator indicator over here. It's extending out that way, and that will be reflected here as well. And when this line comes back in and joins this line, we will be on the locator. Actually a pretty good system. It's been so long since I used the 530 that I forgot that it was even possible to do this. Now as we get closer to our target, we'll go ahead and put on the approach phase of our navigation. Speeds drop down into 160 or so, which is fine. And we're going to be making a slight right turn here in a little while to head toward Coop. And the next point after that will be our landing. So as soon as we see that turn, I'll go ahead and put on the APR button, the approach button, and that will change the navigation mode into approach mode. Getting closer to the locator. And I'll go ahead and arm the approach mode. Now eventually you'll see this little indicator right here drop down toward the center line, and that's our glide slope. And you'll see, you won't see the white arm indicated there. There's a CAPR. That means we have acquired our glide slope and are heading on into the runway. So with that, I'll go ahead and engage 15 flaps, drop our speed just a little bit. Go ahead and turn on the, oh, we've had our landing lights on, my goodness. All right, we'll leave the landing and taxi lights on then. Forgot all about that. Always something. Let's see what, yeah, there's our route. Did a big circle, and now we're heading straight into Merced Airport. Speeds dropped a little bit because the flaps came down. Got, oops. Oh, 5 is what I'm looking for, the key that gives my view down there. Yeah, we've got 3 different flaps settings we can choose from. 15, 30, and 45. Now we should be seeing, yep, there they are, the PAPI lights. So I'll go ahead and drop the gear. Okay. All right, here comes the glide slope, and in a second we'll see the APR indicating that it's now active. Give ourselves 2 notches of flaps. Gears down, landing lights are on. Drop the speed down around 90 eventually for touchdown and landing. All right.
300.
Reverse. All right, we'll come up here to the end of the runway and taxi off. All right, pull up here and clean things up. Just got to avoid the grass on the runway. All right, let's put the park brake on for a minute. Turn off all these warning lights. We can put that away. We can raise the flaps. Come up here and turn off the landing lights. Leave the taxi light on. We can turn off the strobe, I guess. And let's see, we can see how our condition is. I lowered the condition down to ground idle. There we go. I've read that some pilots recommend lowering the condition down to ground idle on landing to avoid excessive lifting on flare. Tendency for the airplane to float. So if you lower it down to ground idle, it kind of helps that situation. We didn't have too much of a problem with that in that landing. Okay, we'll set off the park brake and proceed into taxi. See where we are here at Merced, California. Interesting runway with all the stuff growing in the middle of it. Not sure quite what that's all about. Now let's just swing around here and find one of these park spots. Like right about here. Okay, park brake can go on. And we'll take a look at the lights. Turn off all our wing lights. People can get out of their seats. And we'll take the condition lever and just pull it all the way down. And that shuts down the engines. And with that, we can go ahead and open up the doors and people can hop out and take a look at Merced. So that's it. That's the Pilatus PC12. Very nice aircraft. A little fussy learning the systems of it. It's not complicated, but the condition lever is a little tricky wicket. You have to treat it with great care. Other than that, it's a beautiful aircraft. I like it. Nice to fly, nice to land, very smooth, very powerful. So that's it for episode 5, or installment 5 if you like. I'll see you in number 6. I'm not sure yet what that's going to be, but it'll be soon. Have a good day. Thanks for joining me. Once again, if you have questions or comments or advice or knowledge or instructions on how to do this right, by all means, let me know in the comments below. If you like this video, I always ask people to slam on that thumbs up. I'm not sure what it does, but they say you should do that if you like a video. Maybe I'll get rewards in heaven, who knows. So this is Steve. I appreciate you joining me, and I'll see you soon.